One minute, I was enjoying a peaceful morning by the serene lake behind my cabin, sipping black coffee and soaking in the tranquil sounds of nature. The next, I found myself surrounded by a trio of HOA board members rolling up in their golf cart like they were about to raid a meth lab, and I was the unsuspecting drug dealer. "Sir, you are in violation of HOA Code 7B.5, unauthorized recreational angling," the lead enforcer announced, her bleach blonde hair glistening in the sunlight and her clipboard held like a judge's gavel. I blinked, incredulous. "You can't be serious. I need a permission slip to fish off my own dock." "It's not your dock," she retorted, her tone dripping with superiority. "The lake is community property, and we've recently passed a resolution requiring fishing permits for wildlife protection." "Wildlife protection?" I shot back, incredulous. "The only wildlife I've seen in this lake are a couple of frogs and a three-legged catfish." Ignoring my bemusement, she slapped a bright yellow citation onto my chest with dramatic flair. "You've been cited a $600 fine. Further violations will result in legal action." My laughter erupted, not the polite chuckle, but a full-bellied laugh. I couldn't help it, the absurdity of the situation was just too much. The HOA, armed with power derived from spreadsheets and little laminated cards, was now trying to fine me for something that felt as ludicrous as requiring permission to breathe in the fresh air. "Do you think this is funny?" she asked, her cheeks flush with indignation. "I think it's downright absurd," I replied, folding up my chair and standing to meet her glare. "I've been fishing here for 10 years. This isn't a clubhouse pool, it's a lake." Karen, for that was her name, sniffed with disdain. "That lake is under HOA management, which makes it subject to our rules." That night, I returned home to find a bright orange warning slapped on my front door, as if I had been caught cooking meth in the woods. The letter threatened escalating fines, legal action, and potential suspension of my community privileges. I stared at it for a long moment, then crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. I wasn't angry yet, I was merely bemused and a bit curious. What gave these self-righteous tyrants the right to dictate how I lived my life? The next day, I noticed new signs had appeared overnight, big bold letters declaring, "Fishing prohibited. Violators will be fined." One sign was installed directly next to my dock, another along the tree line where I usually parked my canoe. Taking a deep breath, I walked back inside and made a phone call I hadn't planned on making in years. "Barry," I said when my old college friend answered, "you'll never believe what's happening out here. I need you to look something up for me. The lake behind my cabin, who really owns it?" A pause followed. "Dean, is this about the time I told your ex-girlfriend she could keep the dog? Because I'm still sorry about that." "No, buddy. I'm serious. Look into it for me." By Tuesday, Barry delivered news that rocked my world. The lake wasn't technically HOA property. It had been part of a land deal 30 years ago when the neighborhood was still a blank canvas of dirt lots and zoning proposals. The lake had been leased to the original developer for community use, but, here's the kicker, the option to purchase it had never been finalized. The holding company that still owned the deed had gone dormant, meaning the lake was technically up for grabs. "They think they own the lake," Barry explained, his voice both incredulous and excited. "But nobody actually bought it." A grin spread across my face as Barry continued. "You'd need to find the successor to the holding company and make a formal offer, but it's doable. And I bet based on how badly they've mismanaged the documentation, I doubt anyone else even knows it's available." The energy coursing through my veins felt electric. Fishing had always been about tranquility for me, but now it was about something much more compelling, principle. The HOA thought they could bully, fine, and intimidate overreaching from their inflated sense of authority, but they didn't know who they were messing with. Planning began to well in my mind. I wasn't just going to fish here anymore, I was going to reclaim my right to these waters. 2 days later, the paperwork began moving faster than I had anticipated. Barry helped me navigate through the legal hoops, and I played dumb when Karen drove by, scowling in her golf cart. She even waved at me once, smugly, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface of my calm demeanor. "Dean, I can't believe you're fishing here again," she shouted, feigning friendliness. I just smiled, the gears of revenge turning in my mind. 1 week later, as I stood once again on my dock, rod in hand and warm sunlight on my back, I glanced at the new "Fishing Prohibited" sign beside me and grinned. They wanted to play territorial? Fine. They had chosen the wrong fisherman, because in just 2 weeks' time, I wouldn't just be fishing on that lake, I would be owning it. Every single one of their petty plastic rules would sink like a rock in a rainstorm. Satisfaction washed over me like a cool breeze as Barry began working the legal angles with the finesse of a chess master. Meanwhile, I kept my head down, trying to blend in with the neighborhood. I strolled around, waved to neighbors, and even attended the next HOA meeting as a silent observer. I'd seen Karen sit at the head of the table with her trademark smug expression, basking in the borrowed authority as she read off a new list of lake enforcement guidelines that included kayak sticker registration, approved times for shoreline access, and a dress code for water-based activities. A dress code for the lake. I nearly choked on the free punch provided at the meeting, prompting a few neighbors to look over in concern. But the best part? Not a single word about the lake's actual ownership. The board assumed the HOA owned it, or that someone else had taken care of it ages ago. Karen had become so obsessed with appearances and control that she never bothered questioning the foundation of her power. Meanwhile, I was preparing for a takeover. The stage was set. This was going to be my moment. When Barry called to tell me that the paperwork was finalized and the deed was officially mine, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I held the document in my hands, feeling the exhilaration wrapping around me like an old friend. No more pretending. No more asking permission. I owned the lake, fully, legally, and undeniably mine. I had beaten the HOA at their own game, and now I was ready to write my own rules. The very next morning, the final pieces fell into place. I stood on the lake dock, admiring the calm, shimmering waters, my mind racing with possibilities of what to do next. I realized I was standing at the threshold of a new chapter, one that would turn the tyrannical HOA into a distant echo, a memory of the past replaced by my vision for a peaceful, free community. And more than that, it began to stir a simple, yet exhilarating thought. I wouldn't just be fishing on my lake, I was determined to make it a sanctuary, a place where the spirit of freedom thrived, and where once petty rulers would learn that their reign had come to an end. I had beaten the HOA at their own game, and now I was ready to write my own rules. The deed was finally in my grasp, the proof of my triumph, and the realization made my heart race with anticipation. I stood on the dock, taking in the view of the shimmering lake, my lake, feeling the possibility of what could come next flooding my senses. As I stood there, the sun was creeping higher in the sky, casting a golden hue over everything. It was breathtaking, but I was more focused on what lay just ahead. The thought of turning this lake into something truly special, a sanctuary free from the petty rules and regulations of power-drunk individuals, lit a fire within me. Days passed as I orchestrated my plans. I knew I wouldn't just slip into ownership quietly. I wanted to create a hub where like-minded people could gather, fish, kayak, or simply enjoy the beauty of nature without the judgment of self-appointed overlords. I began to sketch ideas of what I would name this place, this sanctuary of freedom that I was about to build. Lake Liberty, I murmured to myself as I stared out across the water. It resonated with the idea that ownership didn't have to involve self-importance or oppression. Instead, it would be a space that celebrated community, inclusivity, and the joy of the outdoors. With renewed purpose, I picked up the phone and called a local contractor, Vince, who had a reputation for building simple yet charming structures. "I need a modest but welcoming lake lodge," I said when he answered. "Something with character, a spot where people can gather and appreciate the water. Maybe a rental booth, a little storage shed for equipment, and a cozy patio with rocking chairs facing the lake. We need an electronic gate at the entrance to control access. You with me?" "This is going to be fun," Vince replied, his enthusiasm infectious. "When do we start?" After hanging up, I felt a rush of energy ripple through me. This was it, the moment I transformed a simple fishing experience into something much greater. By the time I had finished my call with Vince, I knew it wouldn't be just a lodge, it would be a community hub, a gathering place for those who shared my love of the lake. Over the following weeks, things fell into place with astonishing speed. Each day, I directed construction on the lodge, and every shingle nailed was a sign of my liberation. The quiet mornings by the dock became filled with the sounds of hammers and saws, mingling with the familiar croaking of frogs and the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore. My excitement brought neighbors walking up curiously, peeking at the progress. Some offered friendly smiles while others looked on suspiciously, remnants of the HOA's reign still clinging to their attitudes. But I was undeterred. I waved back, inviting them into this new chapter. In the weeks that followed, as the lodge neared completion, I focused on the legal details, crafting a business model that would foster a membership-based system. It was essential that I design the rules carefully. They needed to keep out those who had tried to control and bully my freedom. I envisioned a kind of club that offered a warm welcome while ensuring that only those who respected the community's ideals could join. As the lodge stood ready to welcome its first members, I turned my attention to marketing. I created a clean, simple website that boasted of all we would offer: opportunities to fish, kayak, and simply unwind along the lake. I even included a section to offer discounted day passes for veterans and first responders, honoring their service while helping to contribute to our community. As the day drew closer for the lodge's opening, a buzz spread through the neighborhood about the site that had once been the HOA's prized possession, but was now blossoming into something new and vibrant. Yet, I could see the dark clouds of discontent forming, particularly from Karen, the former HOA president who had escalated the conflict to devastating levels. It was only a matter of time before she resurfaced. I could almost hear her barbed remarks now, could almost see her face redden with fury. Even as I prepared for what was to come, my resolve strengthened, knowing I was ready to stand my ground against her relentless grip on the community. A week later, as the grand opening approached, I decided to hold a small preview gathering for close neighbors to come see the lodge before it officially opened its doors. I wanted to give them a taste of what was to come, a hint of this new philosophy of community that centered around support and engagement, rather than separation and control. That evening, as I set up a few folding chairs by the lake, the sunset bathed everything in a warm golden light. I nervously paced back and forth, hoping my neighbors would appreciate what I had created. As they began to arrive, I was met with a mixture of enthusiastic comments and questioning stares. "Dean, this place is incredible," someone exclaimed, their eyes sparkling with excitement as they stepped inside. "Wow," another neighbor said, examining the cozy patio. "This is way better than anything the HOA could have planned for us." Just as the atmosphere began to shift toward a welcoming camaraderie, I caught sight of a figure approaching in the distance. Karen. Her shadow fell across the land as she stalked toward our gathering, and suddenly I felt a chill course through me. My gut twisted. I wasn't sure what her presence would bring. "Nice little setup you have here, Dean," she sneered, planting her hands on her hips with the confidence of a conqueror. "I appreciate you dropping by, Karen," I replied calmly, forcing a smile. "We're just showing a few neighbors the new lodge. I hope you're aware you can't just cut people off from the lake. This isn't just about you," she snapped, piercingly. "You're seen as a tyrant just as much as I was." Tension crackled in the air. The atmosphere shifted with unease as neighbors began to glance nervously between us. I took a deep breath, drawing on the unwavering determination brewing inside me. "Here's the thing, Karen," I said evenly, making sure everyone could hear me. "This lodge is built on the principles of community, not dictatorship. I want to share this lake with those who respect it, who want to be part of something great, not rules that suffocate the joy found in fishing and leisure." Karen's face scrunched with indignation, with the arrogance that had once let her dictate how this community lived. "You really think you can change things just by putting up a few signs and acting like you own the place?" she shot back, her voice rising in pitch. Before I could respond, another neighbor raised their voice, finally emboldened by the tension. "This isn't just a power grab, Karen. Dean's actually trying to bring us together, not tear us apart like you tried to." Something flickered in Karen's eyes, a realization that her grasp on power was slipping between her fingers. Gathering her composure, she snorted, "This won't last. People will grow tired of the rules you impose." But I wouldn't flinch. The fire of freedom and connection surged within me, and I locked eyes with my neighbors, their supportive expressions encouraging my response. "If you think I'm going to let you intimidate me or run this community like some petty tyrant, you're sorely mistaken." I held my ground, feeling the solidarity of the moment. That night marked a turning point. I felt a renewed sense of purpose in creating Lake Liberty. It wasn't just about reclaiming the lake, it was about redefining what community meant. I was determined to help rebuild trust while inspiring others to step away from the reins of control that had held them captive for far too long. As the night wrapped around us and laughter filled the air, I savored the camaraderie blooming like wildflowers in spring. This was the beginning of something greater than any HOA could ever take away. The transformation was underway, and it was only going to get better from here. Little did I know, Karen was just getting started too, and she wouldn't go down without a fight. But neither would I. Little did I know, Karen was just getting started too, and she wouldn't go down without a fight. But neither would I. The buzz of that evening rippled through the neighborhood, igniting conversations and stirring excitement about Lake Liberty. But amidst the positivity, I could sense the undercurrent of tension. Karen's wrath was brewing like a storm on the horizon, and I wouldn't have long to wait for the next confrontation. The following day, I decided to focus on marketing the lodge. Before I opened to the public, I wanted to ensure everyone in the community was aware of what I envisioned, a welcoming space where fishing, kayaking, and relaxation reigned supreme. I soon discovered that word had spread quickly. Interest in becoming members soared, and I received countless messages from neighbors eager to join. Their excitement motivated me further. Each inquiry felt like a triumph over the suffocating restrictions of the HOA. But as I worked away in my office, drafting plans for upcoming events, family fishing days, kayak races, bonfire nights, my phone buzzed with an incoming call, and I recognized the number immediately. It was Barry. "Hey, buddy. Thought I'd check in," he said. "How's Lake Liberty shaping up?" "It's electric, man. People are excited, and I can't wait to officially open the doors. But I'm worried about Karen. She's not finished with me yet." "Keep the momentum going," he advised. "I'll come out this weekend, help with the fishing derby. Let's keep the focus on the lake and the community. Show them what it's really about. Keep up that positive energy." "Good idea. Let's turn their frowns upside down," I replied, energized by the thought of not just surviving but thriving in this new venture. As the week passed, everything felt like it was falling into place. I planned a grand opening weekend filled with family events. People were arriving at the lodge daily, intrigued by what we had created. I could almost hear the laugh of children echo over the water, the sound I had longed for, a sharp contrast to the sterile atmosphere mandated by Karen's HOA. But then, late Friday evening, I received an official letter from the HOA. It was an ultimatum drenched in disdain. *** to Dean Foster, owner of Lake Liberty. This is a formal notice that your establishment is in violation of HOA property rules. You are required to cease and desist all operations effective immediately. Failure to comply will result in legal action. ***. I crumpled the letter in my fist, the aggravation building like a tidal wave. Karen had seen the excitement growing, the community rallying together in ways she never imagined. She needed to try and regain control. "Barry, you might want to come over early," I said when I called him. "The HOA's issued a cease and desist order against Lake Liberty. They're trying to shut us down." "Don't let them intimidate you," he replied, his voice steady. "You've got the community on your side. Use that to your advantage." With Barry's words echoing in my mind, I put my plan into action. The opening weekend was set in motion, and the excitement was palpable. Neighbors began to arrive early, transforming what had once been considered community backwater into a vibrant social scene filled with laughter, fishing rods swaying, and kids darting across the lawn. As I moved amongst the vibrant crowd, I felt a surge of support flooding me. I introduced families to one another, listened to their stories, and felt each smile push back against Karen's looming shadow. Questions about the cease and desist order buzzed around, but I kept the mood light, diverting attention towards the activities planned for the day. Then, just after noon, Karen made her appearance, the picture of indignation, flanked by a couple of HOA board members. The crowd quieted, a tense hush falling over the joyful buzz. "Dean," she called out, her voice cutting through the air. "I hope you realize what you're doing is illegal. You're making a mockery of community rules, and I won't stand for it." I stepped forward, heart pounding, but unwavering. "Karen, I'm providing a space for our community to come together and enjoy what this lake truly offers. No one wants your oppressive rules. We want freedom. You may think this is a joke, but I assure you it isn't. You have no right to operate here." She glared at me with a venomous look, clearly hoping to intimidate. Before I could reply, a voice rang out from the crowd. "You don't get to scare us anymore, Karen. We stand with Dean." The outburst ignited swells of agreement, nods, cheers erupting like fireworks around me. In that moment, I felt a renewed strength surge through me. I lifted my hands to calm the crowd. This is what community looks like. This is about us, the neighbors who want to enjoy this lake without fear of petty rules holding us back. I sensed Karen's rage boiling over. Her plan to scare everyone into submission had backfired, and she knew it. Stepping from the front lines of the gathering, she pulled out her phone, intent on taking pictures, her eyes narrowing as she plotted her next move. But the tide had shifted. The community rallied together with an energy that sent shockwaves through the air. "Dean. Lake Liberty. Let's fish," someone shouted, and a cheer erupted throughout the crowd. This was not simply about dogged resistance, it was about reclaiming a piece of our lives that had been held hostage for too long. As laughter and cheers echoed across the water, I felt Karen's influence recede like the tide, her power washing away with each energetic shout of support. That day ended with the kind of unity I had hoped for, and we celebrated under a blanket of stars, laughter filling the night air. We had stood together against the dark voice of oppressors, and it had only made us stronger. But I knew she wouldn't stop here. Karen was an enemy I had underestimated, her resolve was fierce, and her methods cunning. This was just the beginning of an ongoing struggle between freedom and control. As I cleaned up the last of the day's remnants, discarding empty cups and gathering what remained of the bonfire's warm embers, I knew I had to stay vigilant. Lake Liberty was alive, and I wouldn't let it be extinguished by fear or intimidation. A wildfire of determination had sparked, and I was going to fan those flames to ensure our community thrived against any odds. A wildfire of determination had sparked, and I was going to fan those flames to ensure our community thrived against any odds. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity and attendance. Lake Liberty transformed into a community centerpiece, with events growing more vibrant each weekend. Families came to fish, children built sandcastles on the shore, and friendships blossomed over campfires. I could hardly believe how quickly the lodge transitioned from a mere structure to the heart of our community. But it wasn't just about the lodge and activities, it was about the feeling of liberation I saw in my neighbors' faces, how they bloomed in the embrace of friendship and camaraderie. Yet, as buoyed as I was by our progress, I felt the lurking shadow of Karen always nearby, like a storm gathering strength beneath the surface. One evening, as I was closing up the lodge after a particularly successful fishing tournament, I turned the lock and caught sight of a figure waiting by the entrance. It was Barry, his expression tight with concern. "What's up?" I asked, sensing the tension in the air. "I just got off the phone with a few people in the neighborhood. Karen's been rallying the board behind closed doors. They're planning a meeting to respond to your illegal operation," he said, running a hand through his hair. "It sounds like they might be pulling out the big guns." A chill ran down my spine. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "We have to fight this, Barry. We can't let fear drive us away from what we've built." He nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "We need to gather support, bring the community together. If they're going to challenge you, we have to show them just how strong we've become." "Let's call for a town hall meeting," I suggested, my thoughts racing. "We can present our case, share testimonials from our neighbors, and show them that we're not going anywhere." The next day, I flew into action. I designed flyers to announce an open town hall meeting, where I would invite the community to voice their experiences at Lake Liberty. As I distributed them around town, I felt the palpable energy building once more. Each conversation I had rekindled the spirit of unity. That evening, I nervously prepared for the meeting in my lodge, setting out chairs and preparing refreshments. As the sun dipped below the horizon, neighbors trickled in, each face a mixture of anticipation and concern. The atmosphere crackled with energy. We were ready for a showdown. When the last seat was filled, I took a breath and launched into the meeting, sharing what Lake Liberty meant to me and the community. This place was built not just on land, but on the dreams of each one of us. We've come together to create what was once thought impossible, a shared sanctuary. But nothing is more formidable than unity. We've embraced this freedom, and we'll protect it together. As I spoke, I could see nods of agreement throughout the crowd. Some neighbors shared tales of family fishing trips, the joy of laughter filling the air once more. A woman with a sparkle in her eye recounted how her children had learned to kayak for the first time at the lodge. Others chimed in, fostering a chorus of voices that echoed through the room, each story reinforcing our collective resolve. Just when I thought morale couldn't climb higher, a hush fell over the crowd as Karen waltzed in with a retinue of board members, faces hard and proud. She strode right to the front, arms crossed, smirking at the growing crowd. The tension thickened. "So this is what you've gathered, Dean? A pity party," she mocked, scanning the room with disdain. No one budged. Instead, they leaned in closer, empowered. Contrary to her expectations, I stepped forward. "This isn't a pity party, Karen. It's a declaration of what our community stands for. Not only does the lake belong to all of us, but it thrives because we choose to cherish it. You can't scare us away any longer. I can assure you, if you think this unlawful gathering will influence the HOA, you're mistaken," she snapped. "You've been warned. We'll take every step necessary to shut this sorry excuse for a lodge down." My heart raced, but I refused to let her words derail us. "We'll see about that. Our unity cannot be shattered by empty threats. We've decided to stand together, and that's a force you won't easily break." The meeting continued, voices rising in defiance against her, fueled by a newfound determination. It wasn't just about saving Lake Liberty, it was about standing up for the right to live freely, unshackled by oppressive rules that isolated and divided. As the night wore on, I could see a shift. Karen's confidence began to waver, she sensed the tide was turning. Her supporters started to dwindle, their conviction faltering in the face of community strength. With the air swirling with resolve, the night concluded with a pledge to fight for justice, for freedom. When the last neighbor left, I turned to Barry, feeling exhausted but exhilarated. We did it. We really came together. He slapped me on the back, a proud grin on his face. You led them, Dean. You're building something that can't be taken away. We just have to keep fighting. The weeks unfolded like a tapestry, each thread woven from laughter, resilience, and community support. Despite Karen's attempts to rally the HOA, each challenge we faced only solidified our bonds. Legal notices began flashing like shooting stars, representations of the HOA's desperate attempts to intimidate us. But every time I felt the weight of uncertainty, a neighbor or friend would remind me of the sparkle Malay had seen in her children's faces while cradling fishing rods. Those fleeting moments, simple yet powerful, anchored me to our mission. And when the day of the HOA's board meeting finally arrived, the room was brimming with members of our community. As we filed into the building, I felt the strength emanating from each supporting soul. Karen stood at the front, flanked by her board, looking as though she had prepared for a grand duel. Ladies and gentlemen, the HOA president began, trying to assert authority. We're here to deliberate the various complaints around the illegal operation on Lake Liberty. A chorus of murmurs rose from our side, the community's support an undeniable tide. As I readied myself to speak again, I met Karen's gaze, her smirk was gone. By the time we reached the conclusion, it became apparent that our voices had been heard. Our stories were woven into the very fabric of this meeting. The room stood still as we presented our case, testimonials echoing our collective spirit. And in the end, as the board deliberated, the vote came down to a simple yet resounding truth: the community of Lake Liberty was not going anywhere. When the chair announced the decision, an overwhelming support for Lake Liberty's right to operate, I felt the flood of joy crash over me like the waves lapping gently at the shore. Cheers erupted, echoing high above our heads, the sound ricocheting through the air, irrefutable evidence that we had emerged victorious. I turned, catching sight of Karen's flabbergasted expression, the realization that her stranglehold had finally snapped. The weight of her defeat fell heavily on her shoulders, the proud facade she wore shattered by a simple truth: she no longer held power over us. And in that moment of triumph, I thought of all the memories we had yet to create, the bonds we had forged, and the community that had risen up together. Lake Liberty had become not merely a piece of land, but a testament to resilience, friendship, and unwavering support. As we poured back outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing our sanctuary in warm hues of gold and orange. In that glowing light, I felt something shift deep within me. This wasn't just a victory against a tyrant, it was a way of life blooming anew. Surrounded by laughter, promises of future gatherings, and a spirit of defiance against oppression, I smiled, knowing that this battle had forged our community stronger than ever before. We were not just defenders of the lake, we were a family that had reclaimed our right to joy, freedom, and above all, each other.